This talk is about the real impact of SAFe, the real business impact of SAFe. My name is Stefan Vieweg. I'm an SPC and RTE, an Agile coach and consultant. Furthermore, I'm a professor and I'm the director of an institute looking after compliance and corporate governance. And from that angle, I'm carrying out various research activities. In this case, I would like to share with you the results of an empirical research recently done with a team amongst SAFe experts. So it is titled The Art of Unleashing Full SAFe Potential, which means that there is some sort of, well, do it in the right way or just aiming for the right thing. There may be a difference. Let's look into the agenda. First of all, I would like to give you some idea about the relevance and the motivation of that study. Then talk a little bit about the research approach, not too academic, but just to give you a little bit of context here. Share with you findings, and in particular, as we do this as well in the Agile world, give you something for your, as a takeaway for your backlog. Yeah? You may want to consider and think about. So let's look into why did we do this story at all? For sure, SAFe is the leading methodology in the market for Agile, specifically scaled Agile approaches. And what I've done here is a secondary research based on the state of Agile reports we know over the different years. And what you can see here is very clearly that SAFe has more than 1/3 of market share, meanwhile, and other various different approaches do not seem to be able to follow in that regard. And in particular, you should consider that the market is increasing. So the 100% in 2015 does not level off with the recent market size overall. So we are on the growth track, definitely. Yeah. So it is worthwhile to think about SAFe and to focus on that one. Though what we see in the market, voices also I received from various different players in the market, and as a consultant and Agile coach, see that they are not overall positive. Yeah? So what we typically hear is if we come to talk about SAFe, specifically in small and medium enterprises who need some Agile approach as well, SAFe is too good for us. It is too heavy, too complex. Even probably the rigor approach destroys the Agile mindset. It may be too expensive, it doesn't pay off, or some statements like, we did it half a year and well, the promise did not show up. The promised benefits did not show up yet. So, or why scaling? We have a Scrum team, that's good enough for us. So it may be useful to think about a bit the root causes. Why do we hear these kind of voices in the market? And if you look into that one, well, basically it's around the implementation. So how do we do the implementation in the right way? That's probably the overall storyline here. From these sort of not so positive reflections in the market, it may be useful to have some really tangible, convincing arguments at hand to look into SAFe seriously. And that's about this research and why I did this, this empirical research with my team. We see, and we know that from other research as well, that although a company may want to go Agile, which is a good thing, some of them got stuck. Yeah, so probably half of the companies, as you can see here on the right-hand side on the survey, half of the companies have problems with Agile. And if you ask them further, okay, what is the story behind that? Why do you have a problem with that? Well, it's the Agile thinking. It feels wrong. It is not like we used to do it if you look into companies with a more traditional or classical approach. Yeah, or the experience is not there. There's some sort of we know it halfway, but we are not really mature in that. Yeah? So there are a lot of explanations for this, but to bring it together at the end of the day. It is also a question about the leadership and the permanent support from the top. Just saying, okay, let's do Agile or let's scale Agile, that's one thing, but continuously to keep on that path and really stop with old practices and old ways and paths, that's very important. Yeah? Lack of stakeholder management. If we see that in context with more companies that are not purely a software company with whatever, an intrinsic agile mindset as such, but more a traditional business, well, do all stakeholders believe in those approaches with Agile? There are a lot of voices around that. And from that point of view, it may be also a point to look at. Yeah. Then it's about the implementation, as I mentioned earlier on. So it may be inconsistent. And what I've seen in the field is that a lot of companies actually trying to do Agile, and they do some sort of practices, which is not bad, but it's probably not good enough, because then all of a sudden they forget the principles and they just do something, whatever, as we call this, the cargo cult approach that does not really pay off. And what we want to establish with the lean approach, the lean agile approach, is flow. Overall, it is about flow, to set up a production line which is highly efficient and which delivers on a continuous basis innovations. That's all about SAFe at the end of the day. If it's just the software side or if it's more in a broader context of the business. Yeah. So what happens very often is that basically the meaning is gone. Yeah, it's emptying the meaning, and retros are done, if at all, or daily stand-ups, but there's not really meaning behind that, and people don't really feel that this is the appropriate approach to do. So, and that at the end of the day means they fall back into old pattern, and probably those old patterns do not work anymore because, well, we have embarked on the Agile implementation, but the Agile implementation is really not good enough. So it's about, at the end of the day, the maturity of the organization and how far advanced they are in implementing this Get Agile thinking and using the best practices, which is all about best practices here, to implement it on the right in the right way. Yeah. So we know all from the SAFe website those great statements, the testimonials. There are more than 60 testimonials on the website, freely available. These SAFe assessments, they are okay, but now I'm coming a little bit from the academic point of view. They are really, really biased. So all the stories show that, well, there is success, that's good. And also this self-assessment, as we know this from SAFe 4.6, these 4 different areas, the time to market, the quality, productivity, and engagement. We have some ranges of performance from those testimonies at the end of the day. It's for those ones who have survived the transformation. That speaks for itself. On the other side, SAFe 5.0, it's a little bit more handsome, just to have only one figure. Yeah, so twice the 50 for the time to market, the quality, and on the other side, the engagement, 30% improvement and 35% improvement for the productivity. But we only see the bright side. We don't see the dark side. So we don't see those ones who have failed. They would not give a testimonial at all. And probably also Get Agile Inc. wouldn't be too eager to publish those, although we are about an error culture and everything like that. So to make a long story short, probably an independent proof of the success may help also to convey a very good message. Yeah? So because we can then see how to cope with the survival bias and also setting the performance in the right business context. That's also a very important element. And if you see these 4 criteria, actually one criteria is missing. Very simple. From a leadership business driver perspective, show me the money. Very simple. where is the economic dimension? Yeah. So from that point of view, we included that also in our research to extend the safe view a little bit, including also then the economic impact, which at the end of the day is really what matters. Yeah. Let's look very quickly in the research approach for our independent survey we have done. So there's a research question, very simple. To what extent does the maturity level of a safe implementation affect the performance of an organization? Very clear, crisp. That's what drove that research. And we made up a couple of hypotheses and see that there's some sort of independent variable. So basically the maturity degree of a safe implementation, whatever that is, yeah, that drives or has some sort of effect to those four elements we have already seen in the previous slides. So the productivity, the quality, the time to market, and also the motivation, the engagement. Yeah? And now there's also a fifth element, which we included here, the economic impact. The correlation between those ones, we would assume that the higher the maturity, the better the productivity. Yeah, the higher the maturity, the better the quality, engagement, and economic impact as well. But there's a minus, as you can see here, with the time to market. The higher the maturity of the implementation, the shorter the time to market. That's what we are after. It is about speed. Yeah. So we have conducted the research with those ones who are very familiar with SAFe. And this is very important for this research because it would not be very helpful to have not the right overall population we are looking into, because if we would ask people who never have heard about anything about SAFe, what they think, what their maturity level on SAFe is, well, actually, why doing that? You would not get anything out of that. So we ask those ones who know that and who dare to be successful with this Get Agile implementation. So that are basically those SAFe Agilists that are RTEs, release trains engineers, and also SAFe program consultants we have conducted and who participated in that survey. It's a worldwide survey. Also, there are a couple of center of gravities, so to say. Yeah, so it's the US definitely, and also Germany actually. But we have also contributions from other parts of the world, like India, also other European countries, South America, and so forth. So there's this quite a broad range of contributions here, and thanks to you who have participated in this survey actually to give your insights here, because I think the findings are quite interesting. Yeah, so that was the research approach, and now let's home into the findings. So what is then the result? What drives the performance? What drives the safe performance and a good implementation? Well, it is the maturity degree, and we can find out that it's really also from the statistical point of view, statistically significant on a very high level. So we are not going for a 95%, we go for the 99% approach. We have 4 criteria here that shows this this maturity degree, as you can see here. And interestingly enough, it is not so much linked into the approach of do we have safe overall in the business, but actually to have these pockets of experience to get into the implementation mode, as John Cotter told us as well, and we see it on the implementation roadmap and SAFe as well, yeah, so that we are really focused on that and really do it. And we can measure that, for example, with the number of conducted program increments as an example. Yeah, and these criteria, the 5 criteria I mentioned already, they have a certain dependency. So let's look into the findings here. Depending on the level of maturity, on the degree of maturity of an organization, we can see some sort of correlation towards the quality, the productivity, the motivation, time to market, and also the economics. Just to mention again, time to market, the more mature a company is, an organization is, the shorter the time to market. And we see a little bit of this correlation here if you look onto the amber line here. Yeah. And overall, the overall performance you see it is increasing with the level of maturity. So it takes a little bit of learning. That's the outcome here, what we can directly see. If you have this learning curve, if you have this maturity, then you would expect to see in all the 5 categories a better performance overall. Yeah. What we've done then is we took our survey findings in the different categories and compared that to what SAFE, Scale Agile Incorporated is showing on their website, as I mentioned before. And we have some sort of bandwidth. Now we have this sort of high end, and we have this low end. Yeah, so the high end is in green, the green curve, and the low end then the red curve. And very clearly you see on the left-hand side what SAFE officially published on the website. So there is no dimension of economic input, which is really a shame, I have to say. And probably this drove me a little bit into this empirical research, by the way, because I mean, we have a principle number 1, take an economic view, but we are not taking an economic view here. So from that point of view, we included that here as well. And on the right-hand side, you see the results of our survey here from my institute, the ICC. And what we can say overall is, yeah, we have some sort of different patterns here, some of which clearly shows a little bit of overstating from the SAFE communication. So probably a little bit more to look into what's really about that and what is the story behind, just to talk about a bandwidth, but not having the real proof and confirmation behind that, maybe not so good. On the other side, there's also potential where actually, well, also we as a SAFE community can also show more because there's more performance. Yeah, so that is also quite interesting. Let's go a little bit deeper into those analysis in the next slides. So on the engagement level, what we see here that there's a significant better real performance than what is officially stated by SAFE. Interesting, no? So we have quite some good stories to share here with the wider potential SAFE clients, customers, implementation partners, and so forth. Yeah? On the productivity side, slightly better real performance than stated. Yeah, also that gives a little bit of upside quality. Yeah, so that seems to be not so very clear because it looks like a little bit of an overstatement if we look onto the maximum achievements we have, so the high score area from the bandwidth. Yeah, and time to market. Well, I mean, Agile, to bring in very short, a lot of people and also the SAFE community by far thinks Agile is speed. It should be speed. It should also at least minimize the cost of the day, as we know. Yeah, but do we have a business impact on the time to market? And eventually here we see that it may be a little bit overstated compared to what our SAFE experts in the field tells us in the survey. Yeah, that maybe or the reason for that may not be that necessarily the implementation is wrong, but the how is it basically built into the overall business context, that may be the key issue here. If you think about big conglomerates and in a certain area, they start with SAFE, yeah, and have a couple of arts set up or a large solution, whatever, but there is whatever 80–90% of the business is non-SAFE or they want to do Agile as well, but as they are more on the market side, they don't care about the software guys who are doing safe. Yeah, they want to do something else. And that may be that we have a defragmentation then within a company. Yeah, so that's also some lessons learned we saw here. Yeah, and the economic input. My recommendation clearly is here that we should talk about the real economic impact, because there is something to show. Yeah, so we can show that indeed we have some significant improvements. Yeah, more than 20%. Yeah, economic improvement in quite a short time, and I think that's good news. Yeah, good news for the SAFe community. Good news for this approach, and not defragmenting the market with too many of different Agile approaches, methodologies. Yeah. So as a conclusion now, and takeaway for your backlog, I would like to summarize like as follows. Yeah, there's a clear dependency between the lean agile maturity and the outcome. I'm not talking about the output, I'm talking about the outcome. And the outcome is very simple. As a businessman, show me the money. Cash is king, nothing else. So, and there is something. There is a dependency on that. So it's about concentrating on a good implementation in order to achieve a high degree of maturity in a very short period of time, so that we can see really the business impact here. Yeah, SAFe can work well with small medium enterprises as well, as long as the implementation leads to a high maturity level. So, for example, in my country, in Germany, we have some sort of 3 million companies, out of which 17,000 are large companies. The rest, 2.983 million, are small, medium enterprises. There's a lot to gain to increase the community, the SAFe community, for those companies who are large enough to implement SAFe. And we have seen that also in the survey, also the participants, that was not only the biggest, largest corporations who contributed into the survey, that there were also a lot of SMEs in there. And well, they can benefit from SAFe. Yeah, because it is a best practice framework. Everything is there. Yeah, and you have to tailor-made and pick these elements which fits to the purpose they have. Yeah, so that's also, I think, a very important learning here. Overall, the SAFe testimonial reflects the business success, although some quotes seem to be overstated. Yeah, think about quality and time to market, and some probably understated as well, where we have a little bit of more potential. Yeah, yeah. My motto, as you can see here, show me the money. We should link ourselves back to principle number 1, take an economic view, because this is a very good driving argument to embark on the methodology of SAFe, and taking and accepting also that this is a very comprehensive framework as such. Yeah. So having said that, what are the backlog items now for you? What you can take out of this talk here, and you might want to consider to focus on in your next whatever portfolio, lean portfolio management circle, or even if you're on an Agile restaurant on next preparation and planning for the next PI. So there is a lot of opportunity from the maturity view. Yeah. So importance of the maturity, degree of the SAFe implementation. How do we get there? It's about change management, and this is decoupled from if it's SAFe or another methodology. It is purely change management. Yeah, and this is so crucial to unleash the full SAFe potential. Yeah, and that may be something to check for you. Yeah, in the change management approach. And if I put it into one word, where I myself, I mean, I'm a systemic change coach and trainer for whatever 1.5 decades. Meanwhile, yeah, what I've always seen again and again, it is about trust. Yeah, you have to get those ones who are affected from a change into being part of that change, to get them involved. And this is only through trust. Yeah, and setting up an environment for trust gives you the opportunity to speed up. All the technical nitty-gritty details, forget about that. You will manage that. But the foundation is trust here. Yeah? Think a little bit about that. If your change management approach is the best you can think of, and whatever, probably there's some areas to look at. Yeah. Then start focused and avoid complexity, because speed is very important here. Yeah. So less is more, we could say as well. Yeah. Start with one agile release train, even if it's not so perfectly designed, even if the value stream may be a little bit short, but getting started, learn quickly, and then execute from there on. Very simple, as we see that on the implementation roadmap. Very difficult if you do it in practice. Yeah? Then the potential of the productivity gains, yeah, bridge the disconnect between the better productivity and the time to market. I think we see that very clearly from the results here. The problem is that although our agile release trains and the SAFe community in a company, in an organization, they are great, they are extremely speeding up, and then, so what? They deliver, and the business owner, they are still working the old traditional phase gate, waterfall, I don't know what approaches, and we lose a lot of momentum there. Yeah, in a case where we have some sort of more traditional environment. Yeah, I mean, if you're purely on an agile track, then lucky you, I have to say. What I've seen in many companies who are looking into agile, you may see these types of experience I mentioned here. Yeah, if that's the case, then productivity and time to market get this gap closed. Yeah, then the economic impact. Yeah, so hardly any economic argumentation is seen in the field so far, and we need to focus there as well. And in particular, if you see these sort of tiny approaches, self-assessment is great, yeah, but and the rather great as we have it at the moment, yeah, but the business within financial accounting and a managerial accounting environment is very clearly formulated how it works, yeah, and we have to convince, especially the managerial accounting people who lived up with doing this sort of micromanagement, contribution margin, unit price thing, yeah, to show them a different way to do that. OKR, as we have it now in SAFe, it's a good approach, but only one simple approach. We need a little bit more. And here, that's probably also something to look into, how to link up with your controlling teams, your managerial accounting teams, in order to make them part of the change rather than having them outside. And quality, yeah, advancement in the quality. Set up a quality-focused lean culture that avoids the anti-pattern of poor implementation. Yeah, so probably also here, it's very nice that we have this in all these websites and slides with the quality built-in approach, but how much quality is really built in? What is about the relentless improvement, and how far does the relentless improvement really go in your implementation? And probably there is also something to win, because that means also the release of the outcomes, the increments are much better than if this truly quality built-in approach can be implemented. Yeah. So we see here that there's quite a lot of things to reflect, and in case you may want to have more information, I'm happy to share that information with you. I'm happy to have some sort of discussion, debate, or whatever, doing some sort of deep dive in a certain environment, not a problem. Just reach out to me. Here are my contact details. I thank you very much for your time. And as we say in SAFe, keep safe.